Hello, my name is Jessica. I was born in Lakewood, California in 1977 to a married couple, which I know is pertinent these days. In the 70s, they were together and they were in that drug lifestyle, alcohol lifestyle, fun and partying in their early 20s. It was a little hard for them to have two children, which my brother is older. I didn't grow up with the drugs and the alcohol with my parents, as they had separated, and I have not seen my father since. So around 3-4 years old is when we moved in with my grandparents. My grandparents pretty much rescued us and became my brother and I's parents for 10 years. Till I was about 12. We were in Compton when all of the crime rates were going up. Pretty intense life out there. My brother and I had a really great upbringing from my grandparents. My grandmother would be home cooking, my grandpa would be at work, and I don't know where my mother was. So she was young, having fun, and out most of the time. When we were about 12 and 14, my brother and I were taken with my mother, who felt ready to raise us at that point, to Long Beach, California. And that's where we lived for the remaining time of our years of junior high and high school. I noticed that I can tell the stress for her was anxiety ridden to the top level. She would smoke in the house all the time, manipulate us with not really being able to have friends to go out on the weekends. She was lonely, so she always wanted us to be with her. And that's what I really remember, is feeling kind of torn to be with other people and grow up, or be with my mother and feel like I have to stay there all the time. My brother and I jumped into sports so that we can spend more time with our friends and be more focused on something other than my mother. When I had turned 18, I couldn't wait to move out. I was able to sign papers to move into an apartment, and I had quickly met some friends in college where I wasn't really raised with God or understanding it, but it was a group of these radical Christians that reached out to me and felt it was time for me to be a part of their community. It was a college campus Christian community, and it was so radical where we were only friends in the church, and we didn't date outside the church. We didn't really communicate with anybody outside the church except trying to reach out to other people to bring them to the church, which was a really interesting time frame for me to learn a lot about God. I mean, we read the entire Bible. I understood more about Him, but I started building a relationship with the people more than I was with Him, and I noticed that. So in my third year of college, I left the church and was pretty much accused that I would become a different person. I would go to hell, I hate to say the word, but I would go somewhere that I wouldn't be proud of, and God is no longer proud of me. It really tore me from that relationship that I was trying to build and a better understanding of Him. So I just up and left everything. I left that year from California to Las Vegas. I just wanted to leave. I wanted a new identity because I was quite scared from that. So I moved to Vegas in '99, just finished my third year of college and came out here with just clothes and knowing one friend from high school that actually moved here. I did not like it the first year I was here. It was a fast-paced, I'm a modest person, I don't go out and party, but it was a fast-paced environment, and it was quite shocking to me, to say the least. So I had gotten involved in many things that I was accused of getting involved in to prove I could, and I did. Within those first 3 years here in Vegas, I tried to keep myself grounded, though, at work, and tried to start a new career. I went from the In-N-Out Burger that I was with for 5 years and went straight into the hotel and casino industry. Out here at 22, most of the jobs were, just women that were kind of expressing themselves in ways that I'm not used to even seeing. And I just tried to get into anything that was opposite of that. And I started massage school because I knew I wanted to do something that would help people. It took me a year to finish massage school. Within that year, I had met my, at the time, husband. I had gotten married. Everything moved quick. I felt like it was time to just, be grounded and start a family and be focused. And I was 24. So I was kind of in a hurry, thinking this was going to be the answer. So in 2001, September 16th, 5 days after September 11th, my husband and I got married, and we immediately had a child thereafter when everybody was losing their jobs from the tragedy that happened. 2002, my first son, who is now 19, I had him, and within that pregnancy, I was really excited, really happy. But the pregnancy itself, I actually had a C-section, so it was an emergency removal of him, and I didn't feel like I had a child. I had postpartum depression with him. And it was so strong that I would think the darkest thoughts and felt like I was becoming a different person. I would do things to him that would scare a parent. And it started scaring me so much, that's when I started crying and drinking. I started drinking in 2002 for about 6 months straight to just survive what I was going through mentally. And I called Child Protective Services on myself, which I think was God in some way, to say, please help me, because I was absolutely desperate. I didn't tell anybody what I was going through. So I went through a program that helped me get through the understanding of what I went through and to learn to love my son again and to really appreciate being a parent. So it went well. I became alcohol-free. I pretty much stopped anything that was going to harm me or my family. And we worked again on trying to build our life. And I was pregnant with my second son, who is now 16. And with him, I had no difficulties whatsoever. It was a beautiful pregnancy. Everything was great. But I noticed something was missing. There was a disconnect between my husband and I felt like I was not loving him as much. And I had 2 young children. And I started feeling depressed again. I found a church close to my home, and I felt like there was something that was calling me to have more hope, because I felt hopeless. You know, and that's the worst thing when you're a parent and you have children to give hope and you're feeling hopeless. And I started attending Canyon Ridge Church. I fell in love with it. I would bring my children. I would attend every Sunday, and I got to the point where I had to dedicate them, because I want them to feel what I was feeling, and hopefully I can guide them in that direction. The relationship with my husband at the time was getting worse, and we started dabbling into unhealthy activities, and it tore our relationship apart to the point where resentment was coming heavily, and it was rubbing off on the children. And I stopped going to church, and I completely extracted myself from the household, taking my children and separating from my husband in 2008. And I moved to the southwest part of the valley, and I felt like a single mother who was still young to have fun. I was not grounded. I left everything that was hopeful and created my own lifestyle, friends, environment, and I can feel it spiraling, and my drinking started up again. In 2011 is where my drinking really became heavy, 11 and 12, when my children were in their early age. A family friend who was staying with my ex-husband in their separate house had really broke my trust, and it harmed my children. And that's the lowest I ever got. I still deal with that. But today they're beautiful. They don't ever bring it up. They know I love them and will support them, always. So we got through that. And just a side note, the person who did harm them has been in prison since. So that's his area of rehabilitation. And for me, it's just, I needed to be more closer to my children and know everything that goes on with them best that I can. And my biggest thing was to bring them to God, because I was falling apart and there was no help, there was no family here. You know, I was resentful to my ex-husband for allowing something to happen. And I drank myself into 2014, so about 2 years of just heavy drinking, and I don't remember a lot. And then I injured myself so dramatically that it had taken my shoulder and my life, nearly my life. And I was in another state by myself, and no one knew where I was. That was probably the most humbling moment of my life. At that time, I had my 3rd son. So now I'm having 3 children with these overwhelming depression and anxiety thinking and thoughts, and just really spiraling to that point. I had gotten baptized on Easter Sunday, just said I gotta do it. and I went out, and Pastor Scott Whaley just baptized me and had me profess my love for God and my salvation. And I really dove into the crossing. That was my deepest connection, and pretty much the root of where I started learning more about my relationship, more than the people. And that was so important for me, because I wouldn't know what to do, where to go, and how to do it. And this amazing church really guided me, because I was open and I was desperate. By 2014, with my recovery and becoming alcohol-free, July 20th, I made a will to turn my life over and to God and to the understanding of what it is that I was becoming, was from an alcoholic to a believer of God. Raising my children, focusing on my life. Within that year, I bought a house. I recovered from my injury. My children were in school and excelling. I focused tremendously on them, but I couldn't have done it without my community. When I tried to do it on my own, this is what would happen. I would spiral, damage would happen, my family was completely disconnected, and I am not a good manager of my life. So I knew that I had to be a part of something that helps guide me to my deeper relationship with my higher power. And when I started seeing and creating what God meant to me, anything that I had done in my past was no longer harboring me or creating me as a victim constantly. I learned how to reveal who I was becoming and not regretful of anything that I've done, except that it's the journey that I'm on and that He loved me unconditionally. Once I faced everything and professed that to my other alcoholic friend and to my community, the more I started seeing my growth, that I couldn't do this without God. I couldn't do it without His people, and every good thing that has ever happened in my life was because He kept reaching out to me. Even though I've been through so much and created extra tragedies, you know, with the family just being so distant, I brought us all together, knowing with now 7 years of my sobriety, we are the strongest family we have been this entire time. 2 years ago, I did lose my mother. I did not drink over that. Instead, I went to church and I went to a program called Grief Share, where again, God inspired. Thank God, I do, because it makes tremendous amount of stress lifted from me, and understanding of what I have no control over. I can actually just understand more of the process. The chaos of the life from my youth and memories of my traumas, my children's trauma, and creating greatness overall today is solely because I put my mind and my eyes into God's journey, His focus. Reading His scriptures, I'm understanding what He wants from me, and it is night and day, far better than I have ever anticipated this relationship. He has truly been the guide for me and for my children. Today, my son, 19, moved out just this year, and so I pray about it, and I speak to my women who are part of my community, and we pray together. And I can't tell you the amount of anxiety, because I can't control what happens, but the amount of anxiety is lifted because I give it to God, and I only ask God for help to guide him. You know, whether my son believes in Him or not, God believes in my son, and we do, and I love him, and I pray, and that's all I can do. And that's the greatest gift I get today, is to be able to talk to him on a daily basis. I am not taking the medication to help with my mentality or my depression or anxiety. My medication is my prayers. It may sound cliche, but I am definitely a firm believer, because it's just the moment that I give it to Him, the more I realize that the pressure's not on me. I can only handle what's in front of me or what's of me. Can't change or help anyone without asking God's guidance today. And I am certainly grateful for that. You know, it took a journey of education and understanding to learn what He wants for me. And I look to Jesus as His example of a perfect human, closest as I want to be. So if I could learn so much from Him and be a part of community, of the women and the people in the community that want to be closer to Him, then I will follow it. And I think every obstacle I've ever been through, I'm no longer walking on a broken road. I'm walking on a new paved, concrete, firm foundation, and it's unshakable for me. You know, there's obstacles that come up today, and all I do is just really give it to God. You know, and I can only plan events. I cannot plan the outcome, and I'm grateful that I have no control over any of that. Just that I have to, you know, trust more. So that's a daily reprieve. God for everything. And I hope that you hear this story, that you relate to something in there. And you know, it's my goal today to work with people in the community that want to be closer to God. I appreciate everything about you. Thank you.